My wife said, "This has been our most beautiful year together on Christmas Eve," and I responded by pulling evidence of her year-long affair from under our Christmas tree. What happened next turned our family's perfect holiday into the most devastating confession anyone had ever witnessed. But here's the part that will shock you. She wasn't just cheating with one man. She'd been running a secret life with 3 different guys while planning our dream vacation and renewing our wedding vows. When I spread those photos and messages across our coffee table in front of both families, 14 people watched our marriage die in real time. My name is Tyler Johnson, 40 years old, operations manager, and before I tell you how I turned Christmas Eve into my wife's judgment day, you need to understand what I discovered 2 weeks earlier when I hired a private investigator to follow her to what she claimed was a work Christmas party. What he documented made me realize our entire perfect year had been the biggest lie of my life. I work as an operations manager for Atlantic Logistics, a transportation and supply chain company based in Norfolk, Virginia, that manages freight distribution for major retailers throughout the Eastern Seaboard. My job involves coordinating shipping schedules, managing warehouse operations, and ensuring that our clients receive their inventory efficiently and on schedule. I met my wife, Stephanie, at a professional conference in Virginia Beach back in 2019. She was working as an event coordinator for a hotel management company that specialized in corporate retreats and business conferences. Stephanie was charismatic, well-organized, and seemed genuinely interested in building a serious relationship that could lead to marriage and the stable family life we both said we wanted. We were married in 2021 during a beautiful outdoor ceremony that Stephanie had planned with meticulous attention to detail. Everything from the venue selection to the floral arrangements to the reception entertainment reflected Stephanie's talent for creating memorable experiences and her commitment to making our special day perfect for both of our families. Stephanie left her event coordination job after our marriage to focus on what she called building our life together. She took over managing our household, organizing our social calendar, and maintaining relationships with both of our extended families who had embraced her as a beloved daughter-in-law and sister-in-law. Both of our families adored Stephanie and considered her the perfect match for me. My parents, David and Carol, lived about an hour from our house and visited regularly, always commenting on how happy Stephanie made me and how lucky I was to have found such a devoted wife. Stephanie's parents, Robert and Linda, lived across town and hosted monthly family dinners where Stephanie would showcase her cooking skills and charm everyone with her warmth and humor. This year had been particularly special for our marriage. Stephanie and I had taken our dream vacation to Europe in the spring, renewed our wedding vows in a small ceremony with close family in the summer, and started talking seriously about buying a larger house and eventually starting a family. "This has been our most beautiful year together," Stephanie often said during quiet moments when we were reflecting on our experiences and planning for the future. "I feel like we're finally becoming the couple we were meant to be." I agreed completely. From my perspective, our marriage had never been stronger. Stephanie seemed more attentive, more affectionate, and more committed to our relationship than she'd been since our honeymoon period. She would surprise me with romantic dinners, plan weekend getaways to places she knew I'd enjoy, and constantly express gratitude for the life we were building together. But what I didn't realize was that Stephanie's increased attention to our marriage wasn't a sign of deepening commitment. It was guilt management for the elaborate deception she was conducting behind my back. The first hint that something might be wrong came 3 months ago when I noticed inconsistencies in Stephanie's schedule and activities. She had started attending more evening events for work, claiming that her former employer had asked her to freelance on special projects that required her presence at client functions and industry networking events. "The hotel industry is all about relationships," she explained when I asked about her increased evening commitments. "These events are crucial for building the connections I'll need if I decide to go back to work full-time." Stephanie's explanation seemed reasonable, and I was supportive of her efforts to maintain professional relationships and keep her career options open. But her evening absences became more frequent and lasted longer than seemed necessary for professional networking. More concerning was Stephanie's new secretiveness about her phone and computer activities. She had always been open about her communications, often sharing funny texts from friends or interesting articles she'd found online. Suddenly, she was password protecting all her devices and taking her phone with her to the bathroom, something she'd never done before. "I'm dealing with some confidential client information," she said when I mentioned her increased privacy about her devices. "The hotel industry requires a lot of discretion about guest information in business relationships." 2 months ago, my suspicions reached a point where I decided I needed to investigate Stephanie's activities more thoroughly. I hired a private investigator, Marcus Webb, who specialized in marital surveillance and had excellent references from other clients who had needed to verify their spouse's activities. "I hope I'm wrong about this," I told Marcus during our initial consultation. "But I need to know what my wife is actually doing during these evening events she's attending." Marcus was professional and discreet, explaining that he would conduct surveillance without Stephanie's knowledge and provide me with photographic and video documentation of her activities. He also emphasized that many of his investigations resulted in proving that suspicious spouses were actually innocent of any wrongdoing. But after 2 weeks of surveillance, Marcus contacted me with results that were far worse than I had anticipated. "Tyler, I need to meet with you privately to discuss what I've documented," he said during a phone call that immediately made my stomach drop. "Your wife isn't attending work events. She's maintaining active relationships with multiple men, and the situation is more complex than a simple affair." Marcus met me at a coffee shop away from my workplace and neighborhood, where he presented me with a comprehensive report that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage and my wife's character. Stephanie wasn't just having one affair. She was simultaneously involved with 3 different men, each of whom believed he was in an exclusive relationship with a woman who was either divorced or separated from her husband. The first man, Kevin Martinez, was a 35-year-old real estate agent who thought he was dating a recently divorced woman named Sarah, who was working to rebuild her life after a difficult marriage. Stephanie had been seeing Kevin twice a week for dinner dates and overnight stays at his apartment. The second man, Bradley Chen, was a 42-year-old restaurant manager who believed he was in a serious relationship with Michelle, a successful event planner who was separated from her husband and planning to file for divorce soon. Stephanie spent weekends with Bradley, often claiming to me that she was visiting her sister in another city. The third man, Derek Thompson, was a 38-year-old fitness trainer who thought he was engaged to Amanda, a marketing consultant who had recently ended an unhappy marriage and was ready to start a new life with someone who truly understood her. But Stephanie's deception went far beyond maintaining multiple romantic relationships. She had created elaborate false identities for each relationship, complete with fake social media profiles, fictional work histories, and manufactured personal stories that explained why she couldn't introduce her boyfriends to her family or friends. Marcus's investigation revealed that Stephanie had been using our joint credit cards and bank accounts to fund her multiple relationships, taking Kevin on expensive dinner dates, buying Bradley gifts for what she claimed were his birthday and work promotions, and even purchasing an engagement ring for Derek using money from our shared savings account. "She spent over $25,000 of your money in the past 6 months financing these relationships," Marcus explained while showing me credit card statements and bank records. "Each man thinks he's dating a successful, independent woman, but she's actually using your income to create these fictional personas." But the most devastating discovery was Stephanie's long-term plan for managing her multiple relationships and her marriage to me. Text messages that Marcus had obtained through legal surveillance methods showed that Stephanie was planning to choose one of her 3 boyfriends to begin a real relationship with, while continuing to deceive me about her activities until she could orchestrate a divorce that would maximize her financial settlement. "Tyler is so trusting and naive," she had written to Derek. "He has no idea what I'm doing, and by the time he figures anything out, I'll have everything planned for our new life together." To Kevin, she wrote, "My husband travels so much for work that he doesn't pay attention to what I do. I'm basically already single. We just haven't made it official yet." And to Bradley, "I'm just waiting for the right time to leave my marriage. I want to make sure I don't lose everything I've worked for when I start over with you." Stephanie was conducting a systematic evaluation of her 3 boyfriends while using me as a financial safety net and emotional backup plan, all while maintaining the appearance of being a devoted wife who was grateful for our most beautiful year together. Reading through Marcus's report and seeing the photographic evidence of Stephanie's multiple relationships I realized that everything about our perfect year had been a carefully constructed lie designed to keep me unaware of her activities while she planned our marriage's destruction. The European vacation we'd taken together? Stephanie had told Kevin it was a business trip, Bradley that it was a family obligation, and Derek that it was the final closure she needed with her ex-husband before committing fully to their relationship. The vow renewal ceremony that had meant so much to both our families? Stephanie had described it to her boyfriends as a legal formality required for financial reasons, not as the romantic recommitment to our marriage that I believed it represented. Even our discussions about buying a house and starting a family had been part of Stephanie's deception, intended to keep me invested in our marriage, while she determined which of her other relationships offered the best long-term prospects. I decided that Christmas Eve would be the perfect time to confront Stephanie with the truth about her activities, since both of our families would be present for our traditional holiday celebration, and she would be surrounded by all the people she'd been deceiving with her performance as a devoted wife. I arranged the evening carefully, ensuring that Marcus's photographic evidence and documentation of Stephanie's relationships would be organized and ready to present. I also prepared copies for both sets of parents, so they could see the extent of Stephanie's deception and understand why our marriage was ending. Christmas Eve arrived with perfect winter weather, and Stephanie spent the day preparing for what she thought would be another successful performance of marital happiness in front of our families. She cooked an elaborate dinner, decorated our house beautifully, and wrapped gifts with the same attention to detail that had made her successful in event planning. Both families arrived for our traditional celebration. My parents, Stephanie's parents, my sister and her husband, and Stephanie's brother with his wife and children. Everyone was in high spirits, excited about the holiday and commenting on how happy Stephanie and I seemed together. After dinner, as we gathered in the living room around our Christmas tree, Stephanie stood up to make what had become her traditional Christmas Eve speech about gratitude and family bonds. Before we exchange gifts, she began with a warm smile, I want to tell everyone how grateful I am for this beautiful family and this wonderful life we've built together. She looked directly at me with what appeared to be genuine love and appreciation. Tyler, this has been our most beautiful year together. I feel so blessed to be your wife and to have the support of both our families as we continue building our future. The room was filled with warm smiles and murmurs of agreement from family members who had witnessed what they believed was a thriving marriage. But as Stephanie finished her speech and prepared to sit down, I stood up and walked to our Christmas tree, where I had hidden Marcus's investigation report among the wrapped presents earlier that day. Thank you for that lovely speech, Stephanie, I said calmly, pulling out a large manila envelope from behind the tree. Before we open gifts, I have something I'd like to share with everyone about how Stephanie has been spending our most beautiful year together. I could see confusion and then growing alarm in Stephanie's eyes as she realized something was seriously wrong. These are photographs and documentation from a private investigator who has been following Stephanie for the past 2 weeks, I announced to our shocked families. While she's been telling us about her work events and professional commitments, she's actually been maintaining romantic relationships with 3 different men. I began distributing copies of the photographs and text messages to both sets of parents, showing them clear evidence of Stephanie's affairs and the elaborate lies she'd been telling to maintain her multiple relationships. Kevin Martinez thinks he's dating a divorced woman named Sarah. Bradley Chen believes he's engaged to a separated woman named Michelle. Derek Thompson is planning to marry a marketing consultant named Amanda. All 3 of these men think Stephanie is single and available for a serious relationship. The silence in our living room was complete except for the sound of family members turning pages and examining the evidence of Stephanie's systematic deception. The $25,000 in unexplained expenses from our joint accounts. That's the money Stephanie has been spending to finance her relationships with these 3 men, using our shared finances to create false personas and maintain her lies. Stephanie tried to interrupt with denials and explanations, but the photographic evidence was irrefutable. Pictures of her kissing Kevin outside restaurants, holding hands with Bradley at movies, and wearing Derek's engagement ring while shopping for Christmas gifts. Our European vacation, our vow renewal ceremony, our discussions about starting a family. Stephanie has been describing all of these experiences to her boyfriends as obligations she had to fulfill before she could be free to start her real life with them. Both families read through the text messages in stunned silence, seeing their beloved daughter-in-law and daughter's true feelings about the marriage they had all been celebrating and supporting. Stephanie's father was the first to speak. "Stephanie, how could you do this to Tyler and to both our families?" But Stephanie had no explanation that could justify the elaborate deception she'd been conducting for months. She eventually broke down and admitted to the relationships, but claimed she had been planning to end them and recommit to our marriage. The Christmas Eve celebration ended immediately, with both families leaving our house in shock and disgust. Stephanie packed a bag that night and went to stay with a friend, while I began the process of filing for divorce and closing our joint financial accounts. The divorce was finalized within 4 months, with Stephanie receiving minimal assets since she had spent a substantial portion of our shared money on fraudulent activities. Her relationships with all 3 of her boyfriends ended within weeks of the exposure, when they learned that they had been deceived about her marital status and availability. Stephanie's relationship with both families was permanently damaged, and she moved to another state within 6 months, unable to face the social consequences of her deception in our community. As for me, I learned valuable lessons about the importance of verifying behavior that seems too good to be true, and the danger of assuming that increased attention from a spouse necessarily indicates increased commitment to the marriage. Sometimes the most perfect revenge is simply revealing the truth at the moment when lies are supposed to achieve their greatest success. Stephanie wanted to maintain her perfect wife performance while evaluating her options for replacing me with one of her 3 boyfriends. Instead, she lost everything on the night that was supposed to represent love, gratitude, and family commitment. The people who use family celebrations as stages for their deception should remember that some lies are too big to maintain, and some performances eventually require an honest finale.